Number 35 says this. Statisticians use the words below to describe the shape of data distribution. Use your vocabulary skills in the glossary if you need it to match the terms with the histograms that follow. Note that each histogram is described using two terms. So here are your terms here. You have double-peaked, single-peaked, uniform, skewed, and symmetric. So each one of these histograms, they want you to use two of those terms to describe it. So let's start with our very first one. This one's letter A. So first, I guess we should probably go over what the words mean. So double-peaked is data distribution that looks like it has two hills or two peaks in it. If you're looking at any of these histograms below, logically, there's going to be one that looks like it has a double-peaked. That would be one that would be double-peaked. Single-peaked, pretty straightforward. It's just it's a graph that looks like it has a single peak or a single mountain. So here is a single peak, and here is a single peak. Moving on to uniform. Uniform we just talked about in our last problem, but it's basically a graph that looks like it's all about the same. There's no real high points, there's no real low points. And if you're looking for that one, this graph would be the one that kind of matches. It's all about the same. Skewed, we've mentioned it in previous lessons, but it's essentially like you took your data and you kind of pushed it or scrunched it up on one side. So if you're looking at it, this graph right here is going to be our one that is skewed. All the data is kind of pushed off to the right-hand side. And symmetric, meaning that if you were to cut a line down the middle, that it would be about the same on each side. So you could technically have a uniform distribution and have it be symmetric. You could have a double-peaked group of data that is symmetric, and you could also have a single-peaked group of data that is symmetric. It would be very hard to find something that would be symmetric and skewed, because if we cut a line down the center of the graph, this half does not look the same as this half. So with all that done, let's go ahead and recap our different histograms. Okay, so starting with our very first one here. This one we had as uniform, and you could also argue that it's symmetric. Moving on to our second histogram. This one we noted that it was double-peaked, and it was also symmetric. Moving on to our third histogram. This is single-peaked, and you could also argue or say that it is symmetric. Not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Think more in approximate terms. And then our last one, this one could be described as skewed, and then also single-peaked.